He was standing there, waiting for the afternoon to pass, when the words sliced through the air like a blade. "Go back to Africa." The voice was sharp, laced with venom, echoing across the quiet street. People turned, some pretending not to hear, others whispering in disbelief. But for Malik Johnson, those words landed like a storm he had weathered too many times before. He wasn't a stranger to prejudice, but nothing could prepare him for the weight of being targeted so openly, so publicly. It wasn't just an insult, it was an attempt to erase him, to reduce his existence to nothing more than a stereotype. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Would he shout back? Would he walk away? Or would this be the moment that revealed something far greater about who he was and what he stood for? What unfolded next would leave everyone stunned, a moment etched into memory, and a reminder of the battles too many still face. And the question that hung in the air was this: when hatred speaks so loudly, how do you answer without losing yourself? Malik Johnson was not the kind of man who sought conflict. At 36, he had built a life defined not by confrontation, but by quiet perseverance. He worked as a community planner, pouring his energy into revitalizing neglected neighborhoods, ensuring that families had parks to gather in, sidewalks to walk safely on, and community centers where children could learn and play. Every morning, he packed his briefcase with meticulous care, kissed his 2 daughters on the forehead, and told his wife he'd be home in time for dinner. Their modest home sat on a tree-lined street, the kind of place where neighbors waved. Lawns were trimmed, and the hum of ordinary life filled the air. For Malik, normalcy was a hard-won gift, one his parents and grandparents had fought to secure. But beneath that normalcy lay an unease he rarely spoke of, the knowledge that no matter how successful he became, no matter how many lives he touched, there would always be those who looked at him and saw only the color of his skin. That afternoon, as he organized papers for an upcoming city council meeting, the sun warm against his back, he felt secure in the routine of his life. Yet somewhere nearby, tension was already brewing, ready to shatter the peace he had carefully built. He didn't know it yet, but the ordinary would soon unravel, pulling him into a storm that would test not only his patience, but his very dignity. It started subtly, as these things often do. Malik noticed Karen, a neighbor from down the block, watching him with a sharpness that cut through the air. She had always been distant, but today there was a hostility in her stare that prickled at his skin. As he placed documents into his folder, he heard the shuffle of feet drawing closer. Karen's voice rang out, sharp and deliberate, slicing through the murmurs of the street. She accused him of being in the wrong place, of not belonging, her words dripping with the kind of venom only years of prejudice could distill. "Go back to Africa," she spat, her face twisted with anger, as if the very sight of him was an offense. Malik froze, the sting of the words echoing louder than the sound of passing cars. His neighbors shifted uneasily. Some pulled out their phones, eager to capture the confrontation, while others averted their eyes, unwilling to intervene. The air grew heavy, thick with expectation, as if the entire block was waiting for a spark to ignite. Malik's heart pounded. He thought of his daughters playing inside, oblivious to the storm gathering outside their door. He thought of all the times his father had warned him. Stay calm. Don't give them a reason. Your dignity is your shield. And yet, the insult burned, daring him to respond. Karen's voice grew louder, more vicious, as she stepped closer, her anger spilling into the street. Malik knew this was no longer just about him. It was about the right to exist, to stand on his own porch, without being told he didn't belong. And with every second, the tension grew tighter, like a rope stretched to its breaking point. The breaking point came fast and unforgiving. Karen's face was flushed, her words venomous, as she hurled accusations meant to strip Malik of his humanity. But Malik stood rooted in place, his breath steady even as his heart thundered in his chest. He gathered his papers slowly, deliberately, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing him rattled. A hush fell over the crowd as his calmness clashed with her fury, the contrast sharp and undeniable. Phones rose higher, recording. Every moment, the air alive with the weight of history replaying itself on an ordinary suburban street. Then Malik raised his head, his voice clear and unwavering. He spoke not in anger, but in truth, laying out his family's history in the neighborhood, the taxes he paid, the work he had done for the community. He reminded everyone present that his roots in this country were as deep and undeniable as anyone else's, that his right to stand on that street was not up for debate. His words carried strength, not because they were loud, but because they were irrefutable. The crowd shifted, murmurs spreading, some nodding in agreement, others stunned into silence. Karen faltered, her rage losing its grip, her words sputtering into nothingness as the truth stood taller than her hatred. In that moment, the power shifted. Malik wasn't just defending himself, he was holding a mirror to everyone watching, forcing them to confront the ugliness they had witnessed. And though the confrontation ended without violence, the tension still hummed, leaving behind a question no one could ignore. When hatred is exposed to truth, which one will endure? The crowd began to disperse slowly, whispers trailing in the air like smoke after a fire. Karen stood rooted in place, her bravado stripped bare, while Malik gathered his papers with steady hands. His daughters rushed forward, their small arms wrapping around his waist, eyes wide with both relief and pride. For them, the moment wasn't about property deeds or neighborhood disputes. It was about watching their father stand unshaken in the face of hatred. But the weight of what had happened lingered long after the neighbors retreated into their homes. Malik sat on his porch that evening, staring at the quiet street that had become a stage for cruelty and resistance. He replayed the scene in his mind, not out of fear, but because he knew this wasn't an isolated encounter. This was part of a larger pattern, one he had seen etched into news headlines, woven into family stories, and lived through in countless subtle and not-so-subtle ways. The truth was clear. Racism had a way of disguising itself, sometimes loud and vicious like Karen's attack, sometimes soft and insidious in boardrooms, classrooms, and everyday interactions. Malik had lived through both. Yet standing there, exposed to the world, he realized something powerful. The truth, when spoken clearly and fearlessly, could cut through lies that had gone unchallenged for too long. The video of the confrontation spread quickly online, far beyond their neighborhood. Some condemned Karen's behavior, others excused it, but many saw Malik's calm strength as a mirror reflecting their own struggles. People reached out with stories of moments when they, too, had been told they didn't belong. The incident became more than just one man defending his home. It became a conversation about who is allowed to claim space, dignity, and respect in a country still grappling with its history. For Malik, the victory wasn't in humiliating Karen. It was in showing his daughters, and everyone watching, that dignity cannot be stripped away by hatred. It was in reminding people that silence in the face of racism only strengthens it, while courage, even in the simplest form, can shift the balance. Yet, the pain was real, too. The scars of that moment would stay with him, The humiliation of being targeted in front of his children, the reminder that no matter how much he achieved, someone could still try to reduce him to nothing with a single phrase. But those scars carried strength, too. They became part of a larger story, one that would not be erased. And so, as the sun set that night, Malik asked himself, and, by extension, the world, the same question his grandfather had once asked when fighting his own battles for equality. How many more times will we have to prove we belong in a place we have built, protected, and called home for generations? That question lingers still. It lingers every time a black family moves into a new neighborhood. Every time a student is told they're not good enough. Every time silence fills the air after injustice is witnessed but not confronted. This is not just Malik's story. It is the story of millions. A story of resilience, of pain, of strength, and of a demand that will not be silenced. The demand to be seen, respected, and treated as human. So, as you close this video, remember this. Every time hatred tries to erase someone's belonging, the choice falls to all of us. Do we stand silent, or do we stand up? Because one thing is certain, racism does not end with silence. It ends when voices rise. It ends when truth is louder than lies. It ends when we refuse to look away. And the next time someone dares to say, "Go back to Africa," the question won't be whether we hear it. The question will be, what will we do about it?